What if the key to stronger collaboration in schools isn't just about structures, but about the resilience and engagement of the teachers who sustain them?
Intentional and purposeful focus on building a culture of collaboration is the secret for leaders striving to make a difference. In building a culture of collaboration, Kurtis and Lorna Hasson will share simple tips, ideas, and strategies to take your organization's collaborative efforts to the next level.
Before we jump into the episode, remember to join our mailing list at jlinsiders.com. Every Saturday, we send out an exclusive video only to our mailing list, along with other templates, resources, videos, and much, much more. We also share upcoming events and opportunities you may not hear about anywhere else. Go to jlinsiders.com to become part of the JL Insider community.
Welcome to another episode of Building a Culture of Collaboration. I'm Kurtis Hasson, lead learner and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning.
And I'm Lorna Hasson. Today, we're joined by Dr. Julie Schmidt Hasson, professor, researcher, and certified resilience trainer. With over 2 decades of experience as a teacher and principal, Julie now focuses her work on helping schools build teacher resilience and engagement, 2 essentials for retention and collaborative cultures. She's the author of 4 books, including Pause, Ponder, and Persist in the Classroom, and her TEDx Talk, The Teachers We Remember, has inspired educators worldwide.
Julie's the co-host of the Lessons That Last podcast, founder of the Teacher Recharge Project, and a passionate advocate for helping teachers stay longer, grow stronger, and continue making a lasting impact. We're thrilled to have Julie join us for today's conversation. So great to see you, Julie. Thanks for jumping on the podcast.
I'm so excited to talk about our work.
And you know, this was one of the things that really excited of having you on a guest is there's a lot of overlap between the work that we do, some of our past experiences as well. So love to start there. Share with us a bit of your journey from teacher to the work that you do now.
I was a mostly primary grades teacher, loved the little ones, and then I became an assistant principal and a principal. So I spent over 2 decades in K-12. And then my alma mater, Florida Southern College, which is a small school in Florida, started an educational leadership program. I got invited to come over and lead that program and teach. So I found myself as a new professor, knowing how to teach, loving the content, but not sure where I was going with my research. And a great mentor said, "What question is it you really want to answer?" And at that time, my beloved first grade teacher had just retired. And I had these very clear memories of being in her classroom. So what I really wanted to know is, how do we make this lasting impact on people's lives? What do we say? What do we do that sticks with them for decades after they leave us? That research design was interesting. I just bought a sign, the kind of sign with stakes that you stick in the yard, that says, "Let's chat about a teacher you remember." And I would go to parks and craft fairs and flea markets and farmers markets, and I would just stick that sign in the ground and talk to people about teachers. It was the craziest, best idea I ever had.
I love it.
And really strange research design, but I think I collected, by the time I was a few years in, over 600 stories.
Oh,
loved it. That became a TEDx talk and a book. And at some point, I realized, in talking with teachers about their impact, that some really impactful teachers were leaving the profession. And with them, we were losing that potential impact. And I shifted a bit. And of course, this was also about 2020.
oh yeah.
We remember that date well.
Yes. Not a good time to sit and interview people in the park. So I shifted a bit to teacher resilience, and I started to interview teachers about how they keep making an impact. And that's been the path I've been on since about 2020.
Oh, that's so incredible and so interesting. Your research method, that's amazing. It's fascinating listening to people's stories and really understanding, like, especially that idea of being able to just meet people on the street and talk to them about about the impact that teachers have had on their lives. I'm sure that was fascinating.
It was amazing, Lorna. If you have not cried in the street with a stranger about their kindergarten teacher, then you have really missed out.
Oh, that is so amazing.
So I'm really fascinated with this idea of the connection between resilience and collaboration, which is an area that we are super interested in, passionate about as well. So you've shared that your research in teacher resilience is really a collaboration with teachers themselves. Can you tell us more about how teachers co-construct this understanding with you and the kinds of strategies that have surfaced through that process?
I'm a qualitative researcher. I love numbers and data, but that's not what drives my research. My research is driven by observations and interviews, and so I call the people who participate in my research co-creators of the things we find out, because we talk together and they look at my findings and they give me input on what I think I'm seeing, on the themes, on the recommendations, and we really co-create this understanding of teacher resilience together. I'm not in the classroom anymore. I wasn't in the classroom when COVID happened. I was teaching in higher ed. So I need them to help me make sure that I am understanding correctly what it is they're experiencing and what they need.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm super fascinated as well. So we know Albert Bandura talked about the idea of individual teacher efficacy and then expanded to collective efficacy. The idea that when we feel that together we're making an impact, it has such incredible impact on student learning. So I was fascinated with your understanding of individual teacher resilience and the connection to collective resilience. So would you define for us, what do you see individual teacher resilience being? And then in what ways does it ripple outward to strengthen collective resilience within a school team?
So resilience is just navigating through adversity. It could be stress. It could be a bigger challenge like us. I'm in Western North Carolina, so we navigated through a hurricane last year, and I watched the community I live in model that collective resilience. It's bouncing back better or stronger from a challenge. And of course, a community is made up of individuals. So when we have individual resilience, we make up a community that is more resilient, but there are also factors in the community that impact our individual resilience. So the kind of relationships we have, strong relationships are one of the biggest buffers against stress and burnout in teaching. So building those strong relationships in the community definitely impacts our resilience, our access to resources. But collective efficacy, like you said, is so tied into resilience. We have to believe we have the ability to navigate these challenges. Agency, so collective agency is tied in. We have to believe it's possible for us to get where we're trying to go. Collective responsibility to the community. So all of those things are connected to resilience.
Yeah. And so when you talk about that, the relationship between individual resiliency and how it impacts, if we've got multiple people in the community who are really working through and are really resilient, then it becomes that collective resiliency. But I'm thinking too, when we transfer that idea to a classroom, can a teacher directly impact through their resiliency? Can they directly impact students too?
Yes. I mean, we are the best models for students of resiliency. How we respond when something doesn't go as we planned, and how they see us learning from mistakes, the way we talk about struggles and mistakes. But I also think when we think about that notion of collective resilience, students are always watching how we interact with each other as adults in the school. And do we support each other? My favorite way to model this in training with teachers is with a beach ball. So I have one teacher stand up and just bounce the beach ball up in the air for about 45 seconds. And I say, do not let it drop. If you let it drop, terrible things will happen. There'll be big consequences. You have to keep this ball in the air and you can feel the stress. And then I say, okay, now pick 3 friends and the 4 of you keep this beach ball up in the air. and they're talking and they're laughing and there's an ease and one could step out and the rest could keep going. And this is the power for resilience in these relationships, because otherwise it's just you trying desperately to keep that ball in the air. And we feel like that as teachers so often.
So often. Actually, I love that demonstration.
Yeah, that's great.
Because it would have great impact on people's thinking about, how we work together.
You mentioned the 2020 date, and we've talked about it before on this show, that we saw schools that went right to the, okay, we're in isolation, you need to stay in your classroom, we'll connect online, or even worse,
concerned about masks and
or even worse, people who said, we're going to stop meeting, we're going to stop our collaboration, and everyone just go do your own thing. And we saw schools that really struggled. And actually, now that you've given us the language, it was the resiliency that was really difficult to maintain for teachers. But when we saw schools that said, no, we have to lean into our collaboration. Actually, we have to meet more because we're dealing with something we've never seen before. Those were the schools that we saw have, and I loved what you said, bounce back better. Those were the schools that we saw bounce back during that came back quicker and that navigated that storm so much more effectively than those that said, let's stop collaborating completely and just everyone do your own thing.
Because isolation is a resilience killer. And, we talked about the hurricane. It's one of the things we dealt with here is people couldn't get to each other. Roads washed away. And we had to figure out, how do we get to where people are, because isolation was such a danger. And I feel that, just as you said that, during COVID in schools, my daughter was a first-year teacher in COVID. That year was her first year teaching. And her third grade teaching team had always eaten lunch together. And then they were teaching virtually, so they weren't together. And they decided they would get on Zoom at the same time every day and just eat lunch together on Zoom. And it made such a positive difference in how they felt and how their teaching was going. So those relationships, I think, are so foundational to both resilience and the collaboration that you talk about and study.
Absolutely. So we obviously have some things that we suggest leaders could be doing to build collaborative cultures. But from your perspective, Julie, what are some of the most practical and meaningful things that you think leaders can do to build resilience in their organization? We'll be right back to continue this episode. We have all felt like this before when engaging in team meetings, feeling like our time is not being maximized or that this could have just been an email. As a leader, how can we ensure this is not the reality for everyone in the room? Rather than just simply coming together into a shared space, we really need to ensure that whenever we are engaging as a team in meetings, that the time is being utilized to its utmost and that we are truly seeing impact as a result of our conversations. My name is Kurtis Hasson, lead learner and co-founder of Jigsaw Learning. In this free on-demand webinar, I'm going to be sharing with you 5 planning considerations and then 5 facilitation considerations that you can put into place as a leader to take your team meetings to the next level. Access this webinar, and in addition to these 10 considerations, numerous free resources will be shared that you can begin using immediately. I can't wait to have you join me to learn how we can ensure that team meetings are having their optimal impact. And now back to our conversation.
Well, again, it's modeling. Leaders are the most powerful models in a school. When we teach resilience in the Teacher Recharge Project, we focus on these 4 components. So they are regulating, then understanding, being aware of, managing your emotions. Leaders talking about their emotions and modeling that is really important for teachers. I know you talk to schools about that notion of kind of toxic positivity, where everything's awesome, we're always awesome, we don't give space for acknowledging the struggle, and leaders have to acknowledge the struggle. That's important for regulation. The second component is relating, so building those strong, supportive, trusting relationships. I think the most important thing there is to give teachers space and space that is open. So, not scheduling the faculty meeting end to end that's really structured, but having some unstructured time where they're just working alongside each other and they can have conversations naturally. So regulating, relating, reframing. How do we talk about challenges as opportunities? Because in every challenge, there's an opportunity either for me to grow or to help someone else grow, or hopefully both. And then reflecting. And in reflecting, we focus on first celebrating, because we can always find some win, even in the most disastrous outcome. Focusing on challenges and then looking at the changes we want to make. So what went well? I always show clips from that British baking show. Because the souffle sometimes is a little flat, but it tastes good. So what can we celebrate? What were our challenges and what changes do we want to make? But really those 4 areas, if leaders will just focus on that, they can shift resilience in their schools.
Absolutely. So we're taking notes here as we go. It's so interesting when you're talking about the relating and giving space. I'm reminded of something we heard years ago from Rick Dufour around loose, tight leadership.
Yeah.
We can be tight on certain things with our expectations and clarity around that. But then loose, I often refer to this as set the banks of the river, but don't micromanage the flow of the water. Without the banks, it's going to sprawl everywhere. But if you try and micromanage that flow, you're going to lose autonomy for people. You're going to lose the power of the organization. Don't micromanage the flow of the water, which I think is really important.
You know this. Leaders are constantly saying, how do I get my teachers to collaborate more? And my question always is, how much do they trust each other?
Yeah.
And they have to know each other before they can trust each other. And they have to trust each other before they can truly collaborate. So sometimes we've got to back up and let them really know each other first.
Yeah. And even a step further back is at what times have you set up so that teachers can collaborate?
Yes.
I always love when you hear, and I think it was either Douglas Reeve or Andy Hargreaves that had talked about the difficulty when an organization says we value collaboration, and then when you ask, so when does it happen? Oh, when teachers have time
after school.
No, you have to be intentional in setting that time up.
Yes. And it takes, with school schedules right now and all of the things, it takes them outside the box thinking. And I know you help leaders with that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, can we give one faculty meeting a month just for some space for that, where we're not going over the list of things they have to remember and do, and instead let's put that on a video and let's create this space for building relationships and collaborating.
Yeah.
The other part too is when you talked about your 4th pillar of reflecting, we are huge proponents that every conversation start with celebrations. Let's take just a few moments to say, and we've come even further to say, it's not just enough to say this was really successful, or I saw this change in this student, or I saw this growth that happened. We then want to ask ourselves, what did we do that led to that?
Yes.
Over and over. So when someone says, this student, I've seen such a growth in X, we say, that's great. What do you think you did that led to that success? And we're just over and over building up the understanding that we're having impact and we can name it, see it over and over.
That builds that efficacy piece. It builds resilience. We're so quick to do 2 things. To give kids all the credit.
Yeah.
This kid made so much growth. They work so hard.
Oh, true.
And also to, I am so sorry about my dog.
It's all good.
I'm going to open this door real quick and then you won't hear him again. I promise.
Sounds great. So as Julie steps away, we see that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Of people saying, well, the kid has just grown so much, or they've matured, or, the parents finally stepped in. And we've been in meetings where we facilitate. We were just saying with that whole, the kid has grown so much, or, man, the parents have really stepped up. We still want to say, what do you think you did that led to the parents stepping up or further? Or it's been a miracle. The kid has just really taken off. Awesome. What did you do that led to that miracle?
Well, and it's really that, humility in a way that they don't want to actually name something that has happened that they have contributed to. But that's, I think, because we don't spend enough time in reflection and recognizing that there is a space for us to realize that we are having impact. And that is critically important in impacting the trust of our teams, but also the collective efficacy of our whole school.
Absolutely. And we're so quick to go to what didn't go the way I hoped it would,
Yeah.
what didn't go as planned. But the modeling, again, for kids is so powerful when we say, okay, all of this didn't go as the way I hoped when I planned this lesson. But guys, look what we did here and here and here. That's powerful.
Okay, this is the space where you have to jump in with, is it Bowler?
Joe, yeah. So Joe Bowler out of Stanford, the amazing mathematician. She has done research and really focuses in on the brain research of when students make mistakes, when adults make mistakes.
Human beings,
Then your synapses are firing, like really firing, and trying to figure out what went wrong. What do we do next? How do I resolve or continue to the next step? But when we get things right, we have way fewer synapses firing. And she just talks about the importance of, in her context, it's in math, of making sure that we live those mistakes and
know they're valuable,
to understand that it's important learning that happens.
And resilience doesn't build without struggle. We don't build resilience when everything's going well. I love that you talked about that in the math context. I have one of my favorite teachers from when I was a principal, one of my favorite grad students when I was a professor, Kelly Kudia, teaches elementary math, and her favorite thing to do is to take one of the kids' problems and put it up on the screen, and it has to be a problem that didn't arrive at the right answer, and let everybody find the mistake, and they celebrate the mistake. Look what we learned from, and I at first thought kids will be hesitant to have their mistake on the board, but what I found walking through in the mornings was they would be so proud. People were learning from their mistake, and I would walk through, they'd say, Dr. Hasson, look, it's my mistake this morning. And it was such a beautiful way of embracing mistakes and how we learn from them.
My favorite was being in a classroom where there was a bulletin board that was called My Favorite Failure. And students would put up something that they had not done well on, but then there was always a little like a speech bubble that was on there with what I've learned from this that went up. And oh man, the modeling there again of, don't feel bad about making a mistake. It's actually how we learn. And you're right. It's how you build up that resilience and how we model it for students as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, you mentioned the challenge of time, and we always hear that challenge of time when it comes to creating opportunities for teachers to come together. But in your research and experience, what do you see as some other common challenges that schools face when trying to balance the well-being of individual teachers with the needs of the collective team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we talk about time as a limited resource, but also our energy is a really limited resource. Mm-hmm. Often for me, when I'm training with teachers, they're a little resistant to the word resilience. They're tired of being told to be so resilient. So I like the word recharge. It's the same thing. It is how do we, when we're feeling a little depleted and discouraged, charge our educator battery back up. They're so good at monitoring their device battery, but not so good at monitoring their own. We talk a lot about how do we not just sustain our energy, but recharge when we're depleted. Yeah. And I have them do some energy audits. So as I go through the day, what charges me up, what depletes me, and also think about ways they're spending their energy that aren't helpful. We talk about the sweet spot, which is this intersection between what really matters and what I can influence. And we can waste a lot of energy on things that don't matter. And we can waste a lot of energy on things we can't influence. But if we focus on that sweet spot, that's a much better use of our energy and our time. But I think we have to think about both of those things as precious resources that need really intentional management.
Yeah, I love that idea. And that, trying to be able to find that sweet spot where we can feel comfort and hope and, about being able to move ahead, understanding that influence.
It's interesting, Julie. We often will walk schools through or provide an activity for schools to do themselves of name what's getting in the way of student success. Name it. Just write it down, post-it notes, and then we're going to go to this concentric circle, and we're going to put in the middle, which of these can we absolutely control?
Yes.
What's in our control? And then to the next ring of the circle of what can we influence? And then outside the circle is things we can't control. Let's name it, be really intentional about that. And we've seen schools that even leave that up or create a poster out of it. We were in a meeting.
Reference it.
Yeah, we were in a meeting where the conversation was going one way, and one of our educational assistants, one of our paraprofessionals, jumped and said, I think we're out of our locus of control right now. And it was just, it was beautiful. A great opportunity for someone within the team to be able to say, okay, come on back into what we can control.
Right.
Well, and it's almost giving permission to let those things go.
Yeah.
Let it go. Yes, absolutely. And we don't do it perfectly. I catch myself every now and then fretting over something
Always
on the cable news, which no one should watch, and having to say to myself, this is not something that really matters in my sphere, and it's not something I can influence, and therefore I'm not going to spend any more energy on it. But it takes continual awareness and intention to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think, too, this is where our work intersects so well, because I think it's important for individuals to understand the need to recharge. Where am I using energy that maybe isn't isn't in that intersection of what matters and what I can influence. But boy, when we have teams that can help one another and identify that for each other, and when someone says and has that trust to be able to say, I need some help right now because I'm really struggling with this, that it's not a badge of shame. I think sometimes in our profession, there's that hero syndrome that if you admit that this is difficult, this is a struggle, I don't know what to do with this student.
The teacher always have to be right.
Yeah, we want to get to a place of, no, say it, that's okay. And we're here to help. And when you say, I'm not sure what to do with this student, it's not being said as a handoff of, so somebody else take this on. It's just, okay, how can we help support one another through this? So do you see that as well, of how teachers can help each other to recharge?
We talked about the battery metaphor, which a lot of schools really, they love a theme anyway. Metaphor. But I found one school I worked with, their teachers would check in with each other. And if one said, I'm at like 3% right now, another teacher would automatically know to come in and support. Because if I'm at 80% and my co-teacher is at 3, I'm going to say, why don't you step out for a minute? Take a couple breaths of fresh air, hydrate, take a break for a minute, and come back in when you're ready. If we have a language for checking in with each other in terms of our energy. One teacher who had a newborn baby, not getting a lot of sleep, she's like, guys, I'm starting out the day like at less than 10.
Oh, that's amazing.
We can help. But I love just having that way of quickly being able to say to each other, I'm going to need some extra support today. I'm not my best today. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you know, too, when a team really has that level of trust and intuition, I guess, of one another, we've seen teams that someone doesn't necessarily have to say it, although saying it is fantastic, but others just sensing it and jumping in. I can remember being in one grade level team meeting, and you might remember this situation where we had a really difficult student who was consuming just a ton of time, and you could see the classroom teacher just getting more and more ragged from this experience. And her colleagues jumped in and said, you know what? Why doesn't that student come with me for an extra phys ed class during the day? And then another person said they could come with me as well. The chance for this kid to burn off energy 3 times during the day was not just a great thing, but for that other teacher to have just that 2-period reprieve to be able to breathe, and you could almost see just the look of sincerest gratitude to her colleagues of
I love that.
that 2 half-hour blocks.
Lift.
Just
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, I love that. You can see it in their shoulders.
You
Yeah.
can.
All of a sudden, their shoulders relax. And what I love about that for the work you do is now you've got 3 sets of eyeballs on this
Yeah.
struggling student. So you've got 3 people seeing this kiddo in different contexts. And when you go to problem solve around some things, everybody's got a perspective and some information. That's
Absolutely.
The thing that was also amazing about this is if we didn't have the structures or the opportunity for that conversation to happen, it might have happened in the hallway, maybe. But there was intentionality. And then people could understand that when we were shuffling resources, when we weren't giving or assigning EA support or educational assistant support equally, because they understood that, no, actually, this needs more. And I can remember being in those situations where they would say, I know this person is supposed to be in my classroom during this time to help support, but I think I'm actually doing okay here. What if they shuffled over to help you first before they came over to me? And yeah, it just became so powerful. And it, again, I don't think we were naming it that, but it really is what you're talking about, of just creating incredible collective resiliency together.
Yes. I mean, what a powerful community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Julie, looking ahead, what gives you hope about the role of resiliency in shaping more collaborative and sustainable cultures?
We'll be right back to continue this episode. Are you meeting with your team in the hallway, staff room, conference room, or at the back of a classroom? We know that physical space is at a premium in most buildings. However, it is important to consider the impact that your meeting space has on the functioning and well-being of your team. Download our free Leader's Guide for planning spaces for collaboration. This guide will help to determine and plan for the best space for your teams, including considerations that contribute to effective meeting spaces, a checklist to be used when planning the space, and other additional resources. Access the guide at bit.ly/space checklist. That's bit.ly/space checklist, all one word. Get ready to ensure your meeting space is optimally configured to have the greatest impact possible for your next team meeting. And now back to our conversation.
I think it's some of the things we talked about. It is understanding that we have to talk about the struggles because they're real, and that we cannot continue to pretend that everything's great. That's one thing. I think that the understanding in the power of relationships and support, that isolation is such a big killer of resilience, certainly makes collaboration impossible. So that as well. And this thought about protecting our time and our energy with boundaries. We have never done a great job with boundaries in education, but I'm starting to hear more leaders talk about setting boundaries and encouraging their teachers to do that. And I think that's a really hopeful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a question out of left field. Your daughter, you mentioned, began teaching during COVID. Has she moved into any formal leadership roles at this point yet, Julie?
She's in Salt Lake City, Utah. So she's not close by, but we talk often. She is a brand new instructional coach this year.
Oh, exciting.
She's amazing. Very energetic and positive kid. And a principal who hired her, for her first teaching job was a friend of mine, Dawn Stites, amazing. And remember asking Dawn, why did you hire my Kaylin? And Dawn said, she's the perfect combination of soft and strong. And I thought, aren't our best teachers the perfect combination of soft and strong? But she's on a big learning curve this year, because when you're in your own classroom, in your own space, I think you assume everyone does things the way you do. And she's learning things look very different, but she's providing so much support and she's learning so much. She's amazing. Thank you for asking.
That's amazing. And a beautiful description, soft and strong.
It is the perfect description of her. Yes.
So I am curious, has she come to ask Mom any advice on how to navigate some of these? Because we know once you step out of your classroom, there comes challenges with engaging with others. Anything that you've been able to provide her for building up her own resiliency in that role?
I try to be a really good listener and not over advise. That's hard. Because I think she intuitively, like all of our teachers, she intuitively knows more than she often realizes she knows. And so sometimes it's just talking through. But one of the things I have advised her, and we talked about it again a few days ago, is just the power of curiosity over judgment. When you're new to a leadership role or a coaching role, it's easy to judge the decisions other teachers are making, but judgment is heavy. It's bad for our resilience. It's not good for our relationships, but curiosity is energizing. It's light and it's great for relationships. And so trying to help her think about how do I use this lens of curiosity in working with teachers and looking at the things they're doing and asking, is it working for kids? It may not be the way I would do it, but it's working for kids. So that's been my biggest advice to her, I think.
I think there's an empathy that comes too with curiosity that when you're judging, you lose that empathetic side. And I've been fallen victim to that several times myself, where I make an assumption and then realize, oh my goodness, what was going on behind the scenes does not line up with my assumptions. I should have been empathetic in the case of, you see a person interacting in a certain way with a child or a student, but you didn't understand that actually they were up till 2:00 the night before with their own child or student. What I should have been doing was saying, hey, can I help give you a break? It seems like you're and again, if you had the language to be able to say, I think it might be a chance to recharge. Can I come and help with this? Instead of, I'm going to mark that one down. And next time I have a chance, it's going to come up of the way you talk about students is not appropriate.
Yeah, just having that understanding. One of my mentors early in my career, before I moved into those leadership roles, had when we were chatting one day about, how do we move through challenging situations with other teachers and other leaders. One of his key pieces that have stuck with me forever is ask questions. Always ask questions. Everything that you are challenged with or discussing, ask questions. And it's really along that same line of be curious and non-judgmental. I love it.
And thinking that, kind of getting rid of that notion that we have to help fix or save everybody. I said to someone once, the only people more exhausted by my help are the people I'm helping. It's not our job to help fix and save everybody. Sometimes it's our just holding space and asking those questions and providing that support and providing the support that we're capable of providing within our own capacity at the moment. And sometimes it's just a small word of encouragement is all we've got to give, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm reflecting on that, Julie, and actually, I think when you're playing the savior or, I'll come help with that, you're actually, and would this align with some of the research you've seen, you're actually robbing someone of the ability to build resilience because you're taking away their struggle.
Yes.
And we're not saying let people struggle until they're in a hole type of a space, but letting, and I think this really impacts, and I've seen it with my own children, letting some struggle happen is not a bad thing. Talking through it and asking, like you said, asking questions, holding space is valuable. Let the person know they're not in the struggle alone.
Yeah.
Right.
But walking through that struggle is building resilience. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely do. And learning to problem solve is important for our all of our teachers, especially our beginning teachers, and so giving them some space to problem solve. I have this friend who's an amazing teacher, and she was struggling with something the other day, and she posted on social media this little post-it note one of her students had written, and it said, "You can do this, DIS," and it had a heart. And I'm like, I needed that too today. It's so sweet, but you can tell she's modeling that for kids, that, okay, I see you struggling, I'm just going to give you a little encouragement. And it was so precious.
Oh, that's amazing. Julie, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and we have so much enjoyed our time together and learning from you and finding all those connections between our work. It's amazing, actually.
So, Julie, for anyone listening, if they'd like to get a hold of you to learn more, to see any of your books or your TED Talks, what's the best way to be able to do that?
Everything's connected on teacherrecharge.com. So there's a form to connect with me. The blog is there, resources, videos, all kinds of things are there for teachers. But I would love to hear from teachers, whether they want to help us understand resilience better or they have questions or struggles. Please use that form, reach out. We'd love to get back in touch with you.
And once again, the podcast that you have is what if people are looking for that?
The podcast is Lessons That Last. I do that with my amazing English teacher friend who's been my best friend since middle school. We talk about teaching and some of the stories I've collected about teaching. That's linked on Teacher Recharge also, but you can find it on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to your podcast.
Awesome. So we definitely want people to be able to check that out. Well, thank you so much, Julie. This has been an absolute pleasure. And I know that it won't be the last of the conversations that we have with you. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it so much. Thank you both.
Take care, Julie.
Okay, I know we must say this on a regular basis, but we had been really looking forward to this conversation. I've had the chance to interact with Julie a few different times, and her perspective and the way she sees how we engage in our work together is just powerful. And I had no idea that her research started with come tell me about your favorite teacher. That's awesome.
So awesome. Yeah, what a great research method. Yeah. It's so interesting to hear all of those stories. That just really touches your heart.
Okay, so what stood out to you from this conversation? Things that anyone listening could take away and either reflect on or implement.
I have a whole page of notes.
I do too.
No, incredible, her thinking around resiliency, individual resiliency, and the reflection and the space we need to give ourselves in order to get through things that are hard, like those difficult situations. And I think we often think about resiliency as an individual effort, and we don't take it to that next step that she has about when we have a number of resilient people together, we have a stronger community.
I would be very interested to think about the idea of organizational resiliency, because that's really what you're talking about, the collective resiliency. But I'd be very interested to know about the organization's resilience, and that the people, she used the term that bouncing back better from a challenge. I would imagine that applies at an organizational level too, of an organization being able to bounce back from a challenge, or a community bouncing back from a challenge.
And I think her visual, she said that she does the beach ball activity in workshops, but that is a really effective demonstration of that idea of, I have my own resiliency. I can keep that beach ball going, but it's all dependent on me. And there's a little bit of stress there about if I let this go, then I'm in trouble, right? But then when we bring 3 or 4 people together, then somebody can even actually step out because they can't. Or
I mean, to step away for a moment to, again, use her words, to recharge. And if people had that language, just like we shared within our own school, being able to say, this is out of our locus of control, and people understood that language, to have classrooms or schools or organizations where we all know what it means to recharge, that's powerful.
But the power, too, of thinking of those 4 people juggling that ball, the stress level would come down immediately for that first person who was trying to do it on their own, because now it's not my own responsibility to make this happen or make this work, but now I have other colleagues who are helping me. And I think that directly influences and is in relationship to the work that we do around collaborative response, trying to build those collaborative cultures where we make our lives much easier by working in collaboration with each other.
I'm going to steal her words of isolation is a resiliency killer.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I really love the visual, and it makes perfect sense of how you spend your energy matters. And I love that idea of let's look at what matters most.
Yeah.
What can we influence, and the sweet spot being where the two intersect. And that's a great reflective exercise, because I find that myself, that I'm most exhausted or frustrated when I'm spending energy on things that really don't matter that much, or focusing on things that are really outside of my control. When I can look at what actually matters and is within my sphere of influence, that's powerful.
Well,
I love
it
that.
really sets you in a different way of thinking about things. I also absolutely loved when she was talking about her 4 concepts of modeling for people, and the one being regulating, but taking that one step further to know that in order to regulate, you need to acknowledge that there are issues, that there are problems, and it's not sweeping them under the table or only focusing on the positive, but what is the issue that's getting in the way? And let's face it together and try to really move into that space of problem solving.
And everything connects too, because then in order to do that, we need psychological safety in our organization. Like none of these exist in vacuums or on their own. So again, really powerful to think about the role resiliency plays in building that culture of collaboration.
Yeah.
So again, we'd love to say thank you to our guest, Dr. Julie Schmidt Hasson, for joining us on this podcast and sharing their expertise. Please make sure that you check out the notes and go check out teacherrecharge.com to be able to connect with Julie, or if you're interested in a further conversation. So as always, we have 2 requests. First, join or share our mailing list at jlinsiders.com. There we provide weekly content and resources we know you're going to find valuable. Second, please like, share, review, or subscribe to help ensure others can find conversations like this with Dr. Julie. It's really for whoever needs to hear this content around building a culture of collaboration. Finally, don't hesitate to reach out at questions@jigsawlearning.ca if you have a question, a future topic you'd love for us to explore, a future guest to consider, or if you'd just like to connect. We'd love to hear from you. So with that, we wish you all the best as you continue to build that culture of collaboration and resiliency in your organization.
See you soon.
Jigsaw Learning, founded by Kurtis and Lorna Hasson, is a team of educators who work with schools, districts, and educational leaders to establish collaborative response to ensure success for all students. Because every child deserves a team.